My friends, time is slipping away. Every second that ticks by is a second we will never get back. The clock of life is running, and whether we realize it or not, we are moving closer to eternity. We live in a world filled with distractions. Every day, the enemy tries to keep us busy chasing success, running after wealth, drowning in entertainment. But let me ask you, are you listening to the voice of God? There is a higher calling on your life. You were not created just to survive, you were created for something greater. God has placed a purpose within you, and He is calling you to rise above the noise of this world. You may think you have plenty of time. Someday I'll get serious about God. One day I'll follow His plan. But let me tell you the truth. Tomorrow is not promised. The Bible says, now is the accepted time. Behold, now is the day of salvation. 2 Corinthians 6:2. Right now, God is calling you to surrender, calling you to repentance, calling you to a life that matters. He is not just calling preachers and missionaries, He is calling you. He is calling you to love the lost, to stand for truth, to be a light in the darkness. But you have to make a decision. Will you keep living for yourself, or will you answer the call? Will you let fear hold you back, or will you step forward in faith? Time is one of the most precious gifts given to us, yet it is the one thing we often take for granted. Every second that passes is a moment we can never reclaim. No matter how much we may wish to go back and relive a certain day, redo a decision, or spend more time with a loved one, time moves forward without mercy. It does not pause, it does not wait, and it does not rewind. This reality should awaken us to the urgency of using our time wisely, for once it is gone forever. Many people live as though they have an endless supply of time, putting off important things for another day. They say, I'll get to it tomorrow, I'll change my ways when I'm older, or I'll pursue my dreams later. But what if tomorrow never comes? What if later is too late? The truth is, no one knows how much time they have left. Life is fragile, and in an instant, everything can change. A single breath separates life from eternity. Every heartbeat is a reminder that we are moving closer to the end of our journey on earth. Think about the many hours that slip away unnoticed, scrolling through endless distractions, worrying about things that don't matter, or chasing temporary pleasures. The world is filled with noise that steals our attention, convincing us that we have all the time in the world. But deep inside, we know that time is running out. Regret is one of the heaviest burdens a person can carry. The regret of wasted time, the regret of not speaking words of love, the regret of opportunities missed. Many look back on their lives and wish they had done things differently, but by then the time is already gone. History is filled with stories of people who understood the value of time and used it for a greater purpose. They did not wait for the perfect moment. They made the most of the moments they had. Time is like a river, always flowing forward. If we do not step in and move with it, we will be left behind wondering where it all went. The most successful people in the world are not those who have the most time, but those who use their time wisely. They are intentional about how they live, understanding that every decision matters, every action counts, and every day is a gift. It is easy to assume that there will always be more time to mend broken relationships, more time to say I love you, more time to turn to God. But the reality is, time is never guaranteed. We do not control it, but we do control how we use it. If we truly understood the value of each passing moment, we would live differently. We would love deeper, forgive quicker, and pursue what truly matters. Every second that slips away is gone forever. The question is, how will we use the time we have left? As she sat watching the world go by, something caught her eye. It wasn't so much its color or shape, but the way it was moving. She squinted to see if she could better understand what it was and where it was with, but it didn't help. As she continued to stare into the distance, she didn't understand why this uneasiness was building inside her body. Everywhere we turn, distractions surround us. The modern world is filled with countless things that pull our attention away from what truly matters. From the moment we wake up, our minds are bombarded with notifications, news updates, entertainment, and endless scrolling through social media. We live in an age where information is constantly flowing, but instead of making us wiser, it often makes us more restless. The things that demand our attention are not always important, yet they consume our time, our energy, and even our sense of purpose. People spend hours chasing after temporary pleasures, getting lost in entertainment, and worrying about things that add no real value to their lives. The distractions may seem harmless at first: a quick glance at a phone, a little time spent watching television, or a few moments lost in meaningless conversations. But over time, these distractions accumulate, and before we know it, days, months, and even years have passed without us truly focusing on what matters most. Life is not meant to be lived on autopilot, yet so many go through their days without real direction, constantly pulled in different directions by whatever catches their eye. One of the greatest dangers of distractions is that they keep us from fulfilling our true purpose. Many people have dreams, goals, and callings that they feel deep within their hearts, yet they struggle to act on them because something else always seems to take priority. Procrastination often comes disguised as entertainment, unnecessary busyness, or even worrying about the opinions of others. Instead of pursuing what truly matters, many allow themselves to be sidetracked by things that have no lasting value. The things that keep us busy are not always the things that make us better. Even our spiritual lives are at risk in a world full of distractions. It becomes harder to hear God's voice when our minds are filled with noise. Prayer, reflection, and seeking truth take a back seat when we are constantly entertained by the world. The enemy does not always try to destroy people with obvious evil. Sometimes he simply keeps them busy with things that do not matter. If he can keep people distracted, he can keep them from living with purpose. Many people do not reject God outright, but they slowly drift away, caught up in the rush of life, always intending to return, but never quite making the time. Families suffer because of distractions. Parents are often too busy to spend meaningful time with their children. Marriages grow distant because screens demand more attention than spouses. Friendships fade because people are too occupied with their own endless to-do lists. Real relationships require time, effort, and focus, but when distractions take over, the people who matter most can feel neglected. The world is full of things that pull us away from what truly matters, but we have a choice. We can either be controlled by distractions or we can take control of our focus. The more we recognize what is stealing our time and energy, the more we can choose to live with intention, giving our attention to the things that truly last. You were not created by accident. Your life is not a random event, nor are you here just to exist, go through the motions, and eventually fade away. God has a greater calling for you, something far beyond just surviving or chasing after temporary pleasures. Deep within every person is a longing for something more, a sense that life must have a deeper meaning. That longing is not an illusion. It is a divine whisper reminding you that you were created with a purpose. Many people go through life feeling empty, even when they have everything the world tells them they need. Success, money, recognition, none of these things can truly satisfy the soul. People search for meaning in achievements, relationships, and possessions. But no matter how much they gain, there is always something missing. That emptiness exists because you were not made just to exist, you were made to fulfill God's calling. He has placed something unique within you, a role only you can play, a purpose that is greater than anything this world can offer. God calls people not because of their strength, talent, or status, but because of His love. He has a plan for you, and it is not based on what the world values. He does not call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Throughout history, He has chosen ordinary people for extraordinary purposes. Moses was uncertain, yet he led a nation to freedom. David was a shepherd, yet he became a king. The disciples were fishermen, yet they were called to change the world. What mattered was not their abilities, but their willingness to answer God's call. The calling of God is not just for a select few, it is for everyone. No matter your background, no matter your past, no matter how unworthy you may feel, God is still calling you. He is calling you to rise above the distractions, the fears, and the doubts. He is calling you to step into something greater, to live for more than just yourself. Your purpose is not just to make a living, it is to make a difference. It is to bring light into the darkness, to bring hope where there is despair, to love in a world filled with hate. But answering God's call requires faith. It requires stepping out of your comfort zone, trusting that He will lead you even when you do not see the full picture. It requires letting go of the temporary and focusing on the eternal. The world may try to convince you that success is found in wealth, fame, or personal achievements, but true fulfillment comes only when you walk in the purpose God has designed for you. God's calling is not just about what you do, it is about who you become. He is shaping you, refining you, preparing you for something greater than you can imagine. Every moment of your life, every struggle, every victory is part of His greater plan. You were not created just to exist. You were created to fulfill a divine purpose that will leave an eternal impact. As she sat watching the world go by, something caught her eye. It wasn't so much its color or shape, but the way it was moving. She squinted to see if she could better understand what it was and where it was going, but it didn't help. As she continued to stare into the distance, she didn't understand why this uneasiness was building inside her body. Life is uncertain, and tomorrow is never promised. No one knows how much time they have left on this earth. People often live as if they have unlimited days ahead, pushing off important decisions, assuming there will always be another opportunity. But the truth is, every breath we take is a gift, and every moment is fleeting. The future is not in our hands, and the only time we are truly given is the present. This is why the time to respond to God is now, not later, not someday, but today. Many people think they have plenty of time to turn to God. They say, I'll get serious about my faith when I'm older, or I'll seek God after I achieve my goals. But none of us are promised another day, another hour, or even another moment. Life can change in an instant. And what we assume will always be there can be gone without warning. Tragedies happen unexpectedly. People leave this world without a chance to say goodbye. And opportunities that once seemed endless suddenly disappear. Waiting for a perfect time to respond to God is one of the greatest deceptions, because the perfect time is now. The Bible reminds us of this truth, saying, now is the accepted time. Behold, now is the day of salvation. 2 Corinthians 6:2. God is calling, but He will not force anyone to respond. He offers love, grace, and forgiveness. But He also gives people the choice to accept or reject Him. Every moment spent delaying is a moment lost, and the risk of waiting too long is that the door of opportunity may close. Countless people have lived with regret, realizing too late that they missed their chance to make things right, to seek God, to change their lives. Some people hesitate because they feel unworthy. They believe they need to fix their lives before coming to God, that they need to be perfect before they can respond. But that is not how God works. He does not call the perfect, He calls the willing. He welcomes the broken, the lost, the sinner, and the weary. His love is not based on what a person has done, but on who He is. He is always ready to receive those who come to Him, but they must choose to come. Others are distracted by the world, caught up in the temporary things that seem so important but have no eternal value. They chase success, pleasure, and recognition, thinking they have all the time in the world to seek God later. But one day, time will run out. And when it does, nothing else will matter except whether they responded to God's call. The things of this world will fade away, but the decision to follow God has eternal consequences. The most dangerous lie anyone can believe is that there will always be more time. The time to turn to God is not tomorrow, it is right now. Life is full of choices, but there is one decision that matters above all others, the choice between following your own path or surrendering to God's will. Every person is given free will, the ability to decide how they will live, what they will pursue, and whom they will serve. But with that freedom comes responsibility. The path you choose will shape your future, not just in this life, but for eternity. God is calling, offering a life of purpose, peace, and eternal significance, but He will not force anyone to walk in His ways. Each person must decide whether they will trust their own understanding or submit to the one who knows all things. Many people choose to go their own way, believing they can build their own destiny, find their own happiness, and determine their own truth. The world encourages this mindset, telling people to follow their hearts, chase their dreams, and live however they please. But the heart is deceitful and human wisdom is limited. The Bible warns that there is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. Proverbs 14:12. A life lived apart from God may seem fulfilling for a time, but it ultimately leads to emptiness, confusion, and regret. Without God, even success feels hollow and pleasure fades quickly, leaving behind an unshakable sense that something is missing. Surrendering to God's will is not always easy. It requires trust, humility, and a willingness to let go of control. Many fear that following God will mean losing their freedom, giving up their dreams, or missing out on what the world has to offer. But in reality, surrendering to God leads to a greater life than anyone could create for themselves. Jesus said, "Whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." Matthew 10:39. When you let go of your own plans and trust in God's direction, you find real purpose, lasting joy, and a peace that nothing in this world can provide. God's will is not about restrictions, it is about protection and fulfillment. He sees the road ahead, he knows what is best, and he guides with love. Those who surrender to him do not lose themselves, they discover who they were truly meant to be. Walking in God's will does not mean a life without challenges, but it does mean never walking alone. It means having the strength to endure, the wisdom to make the right choices, and the assurance that your life is part of a greater plan. Every person will stand at the crossroads of decision. Follow your way which leads to uncertainty, or surrender to God who leads to life. One path is temporary, the other is eternal. One is based on human understanding, the other on divine wisdom. But no one can remain undecided forever. Each person must make a choice. Will they trust themselves, or will they surrender to the one who created them for something greater? As she sat watching the world go by, something caught her eye. It wasn't so much its color or shape, but the way it was moving. She squinted to see if she could better understand what it was and where it was going, but it didn't help. As she continued to stare into the distance, she didn't understand why this uneasiness was building inside her body. Every choice we make carries weight, not just for today, but for eternity. Life is not a series of meaningless moments. It is a journey where every step shapes our destiny. The decisions we make today will not only affect our own souls, but also the lives of those around us. Whether we realize it or not, our actions, words, and choices leave a lasting impact, either drawing us closer to God or pulling us further away. Time moves forward, and with each passing moment, we are either investing in what truly matters or wasting the precious opportunities we have been given. Many people live as though their decisions are small and insignificant, thinking they can always correct their path later. But later is never guaranteed. Every thought entertained, every word spoken, every habit formed creates a direction. A single decision can set a course that leads either to blessing or to destruction. The choices we make today determine the kind of person we will become tomorrow. Every compromise made for the sake of convenience or comfort weakens the soul, while every step taken in obedience to God strengthens and builds an eternal foundation. God has given each person the power of free will, but with that freedom comes responsibility. No one can blame circumstances, society, or even others for the path they choose. Every individual will stand before God one day and give an account for how they lived. The world tells us that we should live for ourselves, chase after personal success, and seek comfort above all else. But true success is not measured by wealth or achievements. It is measured by faithfulness to what God has called us to do. Some of the most powerful impacts in history have come from people who chose to live for something greater than themselves, who followed God's will even when it was difficult, and whose lives became a testimony of faith. Our decisions also affect those around us. No one lives in isolation. The way we live influences our families, friends, and even strangers we may never meet. A kind word, an act of forgiveness, a moment of integrity, all of these can change someone's life forever. On the other hand, selfishness, anger, or neglect can leave scars that last a lifetime. What we do today has a ripple effect, touching more lives than we realize. We have the light to be a light in a world filled with darkness, to bring hope where there is despair, and to guide others toward truth. Eternity is real, and every decision we make brings us closer to God or further away. The time to choose is now. There is no neutral ground. Every moment is either spent building something eternal or chasing after what will one day fade away. What we do today matters, not just for ourselves, but for the countless lives that will be touched by our choices. When this life is over, the only thing that will truly matter is whether we lived in obedience to God's calling and made choices that impacted eternity. The clock is ticking and time is slipping away faster than we realize. Every heartbeat, every breathing moment is a gift from God, but it is not guaranteed forever. We cannot afford to live in hesitation, distraction, or fear. God is calling you into something eternal, something far beyond what this world offers. The question is, will you answer? There is no more time to delay. No more waiting for the perfect moment. No more excuses. The time to turn to God is now. The time to surrender to His will is now. The time to live with purpose, to impact lives, to step into your divine calling is now. You were not created for a meaningless existence. You were made for a greater purpose, a higher calling, a life that brings glory to God. The world may try to distract you. Your doubts may try to stop you, but the choice is yours. Will you follow your own way? Or will you trust the one who holds eternity in His hands? Do not waste another second. Tomorrow is not promised, but this moment is yours. Choose wisely, choose boldly, choose God.